I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Have the pledge. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann? Mr. Sabal?
Here.
Dr. Gomez? Mr. Bahrain?
Here. Item D, approval of minutes of February 18, 2020, the special meeting. Entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindemann,
I second the motion.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Summary of current events. Superintendent, we have Mrs. Cox, the Assistant Superintendent, presiding today. And we all know that our Superintendent, Ms. Samaniego, is recovering. We wish her the best. We understand she's doing very well. And we hope and wish her a speedy return. So with that, Mrs. Cox, do you have any type of a superintendent's report or any activities that you'd like to inform the board about?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Brain, board members. A total of 281 iPads for pre-K through second grade and 1,180 Chromebooks for grades 3 through 12 have been loaned out to the students that may use, so that they may use it during distance learning. We still have about 100 Chromebooks, which will go out this week, and we are looking at possibly ordering at least 200 more. Schools are doing home visits this week to try to locate non-active students. And this past Saturday, there was a kids fair.
Someone muted you. Press star 6 to unmute.
Backpacks with school supplies were handed out to families at the DHS parking lot through a curbside pickup. So that's all she has for.
Okay, great. And that is the superintendent's report, and you're doing that in lieu of her doing that?
Yes, yes.
All right. Item 2, governing board members. Any reports, Mr. Lindemann?
None at this time.
Dr. Gomez?
I just have a comment,
Go ahead.
and I would like to
Hello?
thank the teachers for,
Hello?
doing this
Hi.
through distance learning, and working hard to make it such a success, and so I want to thank them.
Very good. And if we can have that on behalf of the whole board.
Yes.
And that was a very timely, thank you. Any report from Mr. Sabal or Mr. Ramos?
No, thank you.
Mr. Ramos? Is Mr. Ramos on the line?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
He was on there.
If he doesn't come back. A couple of years ago, as a form of my report, we had an issue that had come to various people in the district, myself being one, and brought it to the board. And I believe at the time it was the previous administration, because it's been 2 years ago. And that particular issue in question is one that comes up from time to time, formally and informally with me, when I see people or people contact me. And that's the issue of what is the designated mascot logo image of the Bulldog in the Douglas School District. There were some people here over the weekend, not this weekend, the prior weekend, that emailed me after they had gotten home, and they said that they were totally confused and disappointed that when they visited the high school, and I was there myself this morning, there are at least 13 images right at the forefront of the plant of a bulldog, and only 3 or 4 of them are the same, which is the traditional bulldog, the one on the bell tower. But of all the rest of them, God only knows where they came from. At the time that the board informally discussed it prior, we were assured, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Anna Samaniego brought it to the board. She showed us the image of 25 different images of the bulldog that were being used. I was told to look at certain websites, and I only looked at 6 of them. And Max Preps has a bulldog that looks nothing like our traditional bulldog, nothing. Arizona Prep 360 has the original bulldog. That's the AIA website. There's a Facebook website. I couldn't find that one. But they told me that there's a Facebook website that has something to do with high school athletics. And it doesn't look anything like the bulldog. And there's another one that has another another Facebook that has nothing to do with it, no resemblance. And the last one was, evidently there's an apparel store, and I don't know if it's a high school bookstore or not, but they sell Douglas High School apparel, and they had a variety of Douglas Bulldogs that you could choose from. The point being, without belaboring the point, is that, and I think I'm a pretty good reference, and Dr. Gomez, I think you would be too. I grew up here. I went to all the athletic events when I was a kid. I remember that the Bulldog is the one on the bell tower. I played and participated in athletics in high school. I know what Bulldog that was. I taught. I was a coach. I was the athletic director. I was the vice principal. And I was in the administration for many years, and I've been affiliated with the district for more years than I'd like to say. The traditional Bulldog is the one that's on the bell tower. And anything that is representative of the Douglas Public Schools Athletic Department or annuals, publications, displays in the building should be the traditional Bulldog. It's been, and I don't want to use the word, but it's been totally prostituted. Anybody can pick it up, and nobody has the authority other than the board. It's part of a policy other than the board to adopt or to pursue any change unless it comes before the board. The point being that I want to make sure that the administration, because there's a lot of people out there, alumni, former athletes, people in the community, it is totally confusing. There's so many images out there that nothing that is not the traditional Bulldog, which is on the bell tower, be instituted or in any way propagated through the Douglas schools unless it's that Bulldog. And anything other than that, we don't purchase anything without anything on it. And that also includes the booster clubs and of course the PTSOs, which are the same because they're under the policies and rules and regulations of the school district. So it's unfortunate that it came back, but people talk to me intermittently all the time. And then these people were here a couple of weeks ago and they were totally disappointed, and I can see why. You have the marquee. If any of you go to the high school and you look at the marquee, you've got one Bulldog on top. There's one in the display, and there's one at the bottom. They're all three different. The two benches are the same. The bell tower is the same, but when you walk into the breezeway, there's a different one. You look at the one under the bell tower, it's different. So, and there's another one that doesn't even resemble the Bulldog that I took a picture of, and I don't have my phone with me. But anyway, I just want to reaffirm to the administration that they pass along that to the proper venues that Bulldog is traditional. Bulldog is the only one we use, and we shouldn't be seeing anything other than that on any athletic uniform, helmet, anything that represents Douglas High School. Okay, all right. Business report, Mr. Soto.
Good afternoon, Mr. Board President, board members. This is my monthly cash report. We're slowly encumbering employees as school officially started, so now we have more employees. We still have, probably by next month, you're going to have a better picture of what the whole year is going to look like and what's encumbered and what's. Keep in mind that there's still a lot of vacancies we have that we're still looking at, maybe not replacing because of the situation, so we're assessing that. Mrs. Cox and Mrs. Walker and I and Mrs. Trevino are going to meet on Thursday, I believe, to look at all of those vacancies. I know there's still some need for special ed IAs, or the one-to-ones. So we're going to take a look at that first before opening any position that it's not needed. Any questions in regards of that report?
I don't know, members of the board, regarding anything on the savings there?
One other thing I have is the Board of Supervisors approve our property tax for this current school year. We dropped full point, 1.0018, so our rate for this year is 5.8529. That includes primary and secondary rates. We went from 6.8547 to 5.8529. So the people of Douglas and the communities, it's not going to see any increases, not from the school district, an increase on the property tax. I haven't seen Cochise College, all of the other entities that can levy for taxes, but just to inform the community that our new property tax rate is 5.8529. Any questions?
First of all, board members, do you have any questions regarding the business report? Dr. Gomez, Mr. Sabal, Mr. Ramos, any questions regarding the business report?
No, sir, thank you.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about the ongoing building projects.
Sure.
Some questions have been asked and comments been made about who actually is overseeing the implementation of the placement of the portable classrooms right now. What firm is actually overseeing that?
What firm is Modular Solutions? They're based out of Phoenix. They're the ones that are setting them up, and at this point, they're doing the ramps and everything. So that's the vendor.
They're not affiliated at all. They're independent of our construction that will be going on later.
Oh, yes, that's totally
Right.
separate from the additional
And that's a
square footage.
separate contract with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just for clarification, did the district lease those, or did we buy them?
The district is leasing them for 5 years. We're going to be paying rent. Of course, we have to pay for the setup and some upfront cost. If I remember correctly, the monthly rates are going to be $900 and $700 a month each for 5 years.
Okay. Are we paying any per diem for any of the people that are working on that project, or paying for any housing or?
No, that everything is included on the contract.
On the contract, and that's the way it should be?
Yes.
That also is for clarification?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to say about that initial discussion I had, that soliloquy I went through, is that about the controversy of the Bulldog. Those of you that are aware, they're having the same controversy at the county right now with the Cochise logo.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yes.
ASU just went through that, whether it would be the Fork or Sparky. And when I was at the state many years ago, the state went through it on the use of the state seal because one of the state agencies had changed the color, and that caused an uproar. Anyway, that was just for informational purposes only. Okay,
I have a question.
sure. Go.
What you just brought up, these portable buildings, where are they going to be placed?
They're already kind of set up right next to the auto shop, between the auto shop and
Oh,
D-Pass.
okay. Oh, okay.
On that little-
So therefore, the high school.
Yes, correct. The goal is to have, the big one is going to be for science classrooms, and the other one, I'm not sure yet what the use is going to be, but at least the bigger one is going to be for at least 2 science classrooms.
So even with what we're building, we're still going to need those two things?
Yes, according to the projections,
Hello?
yes.
Hello?
Mr. Ramos?
Hello?
Yeah, he's there.
Evidently, he can't hear you because he keeps saying,
Mr. Ramos, can you hear me?
Hello?
no, obviously he can't. While he's trying to get him on the line,
I'm going to put you through, okay?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
just a little bit more on your report. who is in charge of getting subletting or the subcontractors? Who's in charge of getting those, like, who's going to do the painting, the electrical, the plumbing, if necessary, and those kinds of things? Are they independently getting those people and not following our procurement?
No.
Or is the district doing it?
No, no. Right now, the big issue right now is electrical. And I requested from them a quote and see how much will it cost us to not do our procurement. But of course, there has to be some fees included because of their running through them. So I already got 3 quotes, so we're gonna do it ourselves to save some money. I'm gonna save like $10,000 by doing it ourselves.
Who's ourselves? The
The
district people?
district, correct. Not the district people. I'm gonna contract out. Most likely it's gonna be Douglas Electric is the cheapest one, is the cheapest quote we got so far. We got Conkling Electric from Bisbee and Bird's Construction here. Douglas Electric is the cheapest one, which is $29,980, so $30,000.
And that's good, because you keep it local, and that's
Correct.
good. But, the question always has to be, whenever you get in a project like that, who actually administrates it? I mean, when you let a contract, as we did with them, they're the ones that are generally responsible for doing that, because it's their budget as well as ours. Once we contract them and they
Correct.
make a proposal, then they have to work within whatever their budget happens to be and what their proposal was. So why are we playing a dual role with them? Why are they allowing you to do this following our procurement code when they're the ones that got the contract and they should be responsible for the
Yeah, but
subcontract?
that wasn't included on the original contract. That's why the original contract was to bring the portables, put the AC units and all that stuff. The electrical and the plumbing is basically not included. They're responsible for everything else. And of course, that was one of the things that that they brought up right away, and that's why I said, okay, if you guys can do it, go ahead and do it. But again, it's that markup of $10,000 that I'm like, okay, no, I'd rather just procure it myself, the district, and save some money. So we have the electrical and we have the plumbing that we have to get ready, and those are the only things that modular solutions are not responsible for. That's why we're doing that.
But in the original contract that you brought to the board that we approved for those, was it clearly stated in there as that the board, that the district would be responsible for
Correct.
anything other than the placement?
Correct.
So they haven't retained any subcontractor? at
No,
all?
not them. No.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Gomez, you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, Mr. Lindeman?
I'm good.
Mr. Sabal or Mr. Ramos, any questions on anything?
No
regarding
questions,
the
thank
business?
you.
All right,
No questions.
okay, thank you. Public comments, do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, you're missing the enrollment report?
Enrollment report.
Oh, I thought she was going to include it in part of her report. No, it's all right, go ahead and do, I'm sorry, go ahead and do the enrollment.
Okay, so we have 4,010 students currently enrolled. And so at our learning spaces, we have 20 students attending at Clausen, 32 students attending at Joe Carlson, 12 attending at Ferris, 20 at Sarah Marley, 24 at Stevenson. Huber has 37 students attending. Rayburn has 22, and the high school has about 45.
Okay, any members, any comments regarding those numbers, members of the board?
Those are the ones
No, thank you.
that can't stay at home.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then also, Mrs. Cox, we discussed that the assistant superintendent, who is also in charge of HR, should also simultaneously with the enrollment, because that's such a magnanimous job to have as assistant superintendent, and only to give an enrollment report. So, no, and I'm serious. Do you have any report regarding HR? I know Mr. Soto talked a little bit about some savings earlier, but if you want to add anything regarding HR, which you're over, would you like to make any comments regarding that?
So at this time, I won't, but when we go through the agenda, I would like to recognize some people.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Thank you.
Now we'll go to comments by the public, and I understand we have one.
Yes, we do. And this was submitted by Kevin Ibarra, 2335 11th Street, Douglas, Arizona, 85607. and he is representing Douglas football. And so it says, I request permission to address the governing board on the following item on the agenda. As we are getting ready to begin the season, I feel it is safe enough to begin practicing and have one. The CDC has shown that the rate has been dropping tremendously of COVID-19, and with that and taking the proper precautions being taken seriously, I feel we are able to have a season, and I encourage you to feel the same way.
Is he an employee?
He is a student at Douglas High School.
Just a citizen of Douglas? Okay, very good. And thank him for that comment. We welcome comments. We'll get to more of that later in the agenda. Consent agenda item 2A, approval of the following consent agenda items, payroll and expense vouchers as listed 1, 2, and 3. Expense vouchers, student activities, and payroll vouchers as presented. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman.
I second.
Second by Dr. Gomez. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3A, discussion action on the approval of certified hire. Mrs. Cox.
As presented,
So we have a math teacher, Elvis Rosa -OT at Paul Huber Middle School.
yes.
Entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman,
I second.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item B, discussion action on the approval of classified hires. Ms. Cox.
As presented,
And they are Bianca Moreno and Eileen Hidalgo, right?
yes.
Entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman,
I second.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3C, discussion action on the approval of classified transfer. Mrs. Cox.
As presented,
Could you, for the purposes of the board understanding, what you mean by ratification?
so Sarah Owen Bettis was an IA, an instructional assistant at Joe Carlson, and so the person who had this position resigned, and so we needed to fill the position, and so she started before she had previously already started.
Is there more money involved?
Yes.
There's more money involved, that's the reason the board's got it. Okay,
Yes.
good. All right, entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman.
I second.
Second by Mr. Sabal.
Just a little bit of discussion.
Discussion.
So parent liaisons are paid
Yes.
by the district. Okay,
Yes.
that's all.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3D, discussion action on the approval of classified resignations and retirement. Ms. Cox.
As presented, but I would like to take a moment to recognize some of the employees that are retiring from the district. And so I would like to recognize Elizabeth Fimbres for 14 years of service to our district, Griselda Busanes, 17 years of service, Enrique Barcelo, 27 years, Dolores Rascon, 23 years of service, Shelly Rojas, 29 years of service, and Ana Saavedra, 23 years of service.
Very good. Very good. And we thank them for that. Let me ask a question here. I'm a little confused. Is that item 3D? I didn't see those names on mine. Was that part of the revised agenda?
No?
No?
No. There's a second
Oh, okay,
page.
there they are, right there. Got it. All right, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong place. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman, second
Second.
by Dr. Gomez.
And Mr. President, I would also like to say, thank them very much for their years of service.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciated.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Berine.
Yes. Item E, discussion action on the approval of addendum for Yolanda Caruso. Mrs. Cox.
As presented.
I'll entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman,
Second.
second by Mr. Sabal. Discussion? What the addendum is because she's the head nurse?
Yes, oversees all of the nurses in the district and health aides.
Right. And that's an annual addendum, right? for
Yes,
her?
and it's per policy, yes.
Right. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes,
Mr. Berine.
Yes. Item 3F, discussion action on the approval of athletic hires. Yeah, this is yours, Ms. Cox.
Yes, so as presented, however, we would like to have the last two bullets removed. So if you could entertain that.
Okay, on item 3F, we will be approving, as presented by the administration, for the head volleyball coach, Ashley Ellis, and the two following names to be removed.
Yes, please.
All right, the way we're going to do that is,
I move to table.
is there a second to table?
well, but the thing is, we're gonna table the last two, not the first one.
No, we're going to do the whole thing, and then when we get into discussion, and then if you feel comfortable doing it, I think you'll see why.
Okay, all right,
A
second.
second by Dr. Gomez. Discussion. First of all, Mr. Lindeman, you want to discuss your reason for tabling?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to table this because it has to do with athletics, and I think it's premature that we decide those things until at a later time. So, thank you very much.
Okay, and and so that would be all encompassing. It would be all three of them, and that would serve your purpose as well.
Yes.
So, any further discussion on the table? I'll entertain a motion to table.
I move to table.
Excuse me.
second.
Excuse me, we have a motion on, we have a motion on the
Yes.
floor.
got a second?
We didn't have an original motion, we just had the table motion, and Dr. Gomez seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes,
Mr. Berine.
Yes, and just for clarity, it's tabled, and we didn't designate when. So it's tabled indefinitely, so that means when we come back, we have to take it off the table, and unless we had it said till the next meeting, but I think for their purposes, that's what needed to happen, okay? All right, item G, discussion action on the approval of athletic resignations. Ms. Cox.
As presented, however, for the second bullet, it is basketball, not volleyball. I mean, yes, so it says volleyball assistant coach, and that should be basketball assistant coach.
Girls in basketball, I think, right?
Girls, uh-huh.
so Ms. Tapia is resigning from her assistant coach,
Yes,
Okay.
for basketball.
basketball,
yes.
yeah, okay.
Okay, and again, there's another outstanding employee, an out person, been with the district a long time, very respected woman in the community, as well as by her students and staff and her players. So we'll do that with regrets that she's leaving that program. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman,
I second.
second by Mr. Sabal.
Yes.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes,
Mr. Berine.
Yes. Item H, discussion information only for certified and classified internal transfers. Ms. Cox.
As presented.
Okay, and this is just for the record. No action need be taken on that, on either one of them. So unless there's any questions or discussion by board members. Item I, discussion action on the approval of donations received, the Douglas Unified District number 27, Ms. Cox.
As presented.
Members of the board, do you have any questions or comments regarding any of those? Okay, entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman,
He said I
second
second.
by Mr. Sabal. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item J, discussion action on Douglas High School athletics. And that's item J, and I think we have a little bit of a change. We need to do a little housekeeping here. When the board originally got the agenda on Friday, and there was no communication with the staff or the administration up until our presence here today, it was discussion action on the approval of donations received for, discussion action on Douglas High School athletics. It says Mr. Angel Ortega will be presenting to the board the recommendations for Douglas High School athletics. Attached is the presentation from Mr. Ortega telephonically. And then it says superintendent recommendation, discuss the recommendation for DHS athletics as presented. So when we got here today, that was the best information we had, that there was no recommendation from the superintendent, correct? So I want to make sure that we're well aware of that. Then I want to ask board members, are you all familiar? Did you have an opportunity to read the recommendation? It's pretty detailed. It's well done. It's pretty thorough. Did board members, did you have an opportunity to read it, Mr. Lindeman?
Yes, I did. And I really believe that in light of all the infections and the COVID-19, it's just not prudent to move ahead with athletics at this time, and I believe that we should just fall back on what we had previously discussed because of the rates. They haven't gone down, and so that would be my recommendation.
Okay, but you read it, and after having read it, that is your feeling and that's your comment?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Gomez, did you read it? You read it?
Yes, I read it, but what I'm kind of going on is that I was reading the Sierra Vista Herald Wednesday, and it shows that Sierra Vista, all the county schools, I think, except us, are practicing. So I just think that we also need to think of that situation.
That the schools are what?
Practicing.
Practicing. Mr. Ramos.
Mr. Bahrain. Go ahead, Nat.
Go ahead, Nat.
I've read this. We already read it several times, and I think it should be put aside. We've gotten enough information, and let's continue on.
All right, Mr. Ramos, you had an opportunity to read it. Now, we've got Mr. Ortega, and we're certainly going to let him avail himself to the board here, and we're going to ask him questions, and I hope that there are questions because there was a lot of work went into this. Mr. Ramos.
Yes, I feel just the same way. Was mainly more concerned also with the transportation for the athletes to wherever they would have to be going to travel, and so I think we just should hold back at this time.
All right, let me read a few comments and a few things that came out this morning. Number one is that the AIA Executive Board is meeting in emergency session tomorrow, and they're going to revisit this whole situation because they haven't even put out a schedule yet. All right, and then this came from an AIA, and this out of the Arizona Republic this morning. It says the Arizona Interscholastic Association is yet to post new fall sports schedules on their Arizona Preps 365 webpage as of August the 30th. That's the first part, and it goes on to say other things. And then it says this comes as more school districts in Arizona have announced they are canceling fall sports completely due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Phoenix Union High School District canceled all fall sports August the 14th becoming the largest school district in the state to do so. They've also canceled all extracurricular activities. It says the district has 27,000 students and employs almost 2,800 people. And it's interesting, the comments said the district superintendent, Dr. Chad Geston, said the decision was made to cancel sports and extracurricular until it became safer to hold them. He noted the benchmark from the Arizona Department of Health Services for returning to school for in-person classes is for a coronavirus testing rate of 5%. And it says for the central, he goes on to talk about the Phoenix area. And then it lists 21 other schools that have canceled. And then it goes on to say 3 state universities, the University of Arizona, Arizona State, and Northern Arizona will not be having fall sports, and they've also canceled. It says, it talks about their conferences. These are all things that are coming out today. And then, again, with the information that we have locally, and that's what we should be concerned about. But there's so many intervening factors here. And Mr. Ortega and Mr. Walker, you hang on, we're going to get to you. I've spoken to various people in the community that have, in a couple of coaches, and coaches at the high school. And the coaches themselves are, the ones that spoke to me, are very apprehensive about having any activity. Not only because of the students' safety and well-being and their health, but also for theirs and their families. And the thing that was noted in an op-ed yesterday, I think it was in the Arizona Republic, was the grave concern that these young people could be asymptomatic and be able to intervene and interact with other students and coaches, and yet the big dilemma is to whether or not we can provide them with a safe enough environment and enforce it. And that's partially quoting from that opinion that I read, but that the concern is that these kids themselves can be the spreader, and to the older people, to their families, and to other members of their household. So those are things that I just wanted to mention, especially the importance of the meeting that's going to be held tomorrow. And that's going to be very, very telling, because the AIA at that point could say they're not scheduling anything. And as of today, August the 30th, there's still no schedule according to Arizona Prep 365. So with that, I'm going to go around the table again, and then Mr. Lindeman, is Mr. Walker and Mr. Ortega on the line?
Hello? Okay.
Is Mr. Ortega and Mr. Walker on the line?
Mr. Ortega, yes. Mr. I can
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Lindeman, we'll start with you. Do you have any questions regarding the presentation that was made, if you read it, that I'm sure Mr. Ortega would be willing
Can you
to?
hear me?
Yeah, Mr. Walker's on there.
Yeah, we can hear, I can hear both of them.
Can't hear you.
Okay. This is horrible.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you. I don't really have any questions per se, but I wanted to just say that it was very succinct and well thought out report, and I appreciate all the work that was put into it. I myself am not feeling good about even one person contracting and ending up in the hospital and perhaps dying. I just don't think that is something that we wanted to deal with, and so I would like to follow suit with the Phoenix schools and cancel for the entire fall. I think that's only prudent. Thank you.
Dr. Gomez?
I have mixed feelings, so I won't say. I'll decide when we vote.
Okay. Mr. Ramos, do you have any questions? Then I'm going to let Mr. Ortega react to the comments he's heard. Mr. Ramos, do you have any questions of them?
Yes. No questions at this time.
Mr. Sabal?
No question at this time.
Okay, Mr. Ortega,
He got disconnected. I'm gonna dial him in again.
pardon?
He got disconnected.
Go
I'm
ahead,
gonna dial him in real fast.
go ahead.
Hello?
Mr. Ortega?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Ortega, you heard the discussion and the comments by the board. We're going to let you have the floor now, and either to react to what you've already heard, or if you want to supplement or make any other comments regarding your proposition or proposal to the board, now's the opportunity to do that.
Sure, thank you. And I'm not sure if my presentation is on the screen right now. I'm not too sure what I'm looking at this point. But I'm going to go ahead and proceed with my presentation that I had planned, if I may. Are we at our presentation on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
We're going to let you do whatever you want to do regarding that, but keep it in mind that the board members have already read it. We're waiting for it to come up on the screen.
Right.
Oh, okay, we're ready to go. Okay, go ahead, Angel.
Okay, so I'm going to proceed as normal, as planned. First and foremost, Mr. Brain, Governing Board, Mrs. Samaniego, Mrs. Cox, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak in front of you as well as the public, and provide some insight and some information moving forward for athletics, and speaking on behalf of the coaches and student athletes. It's much appreciated with this opportunity to provide our best case for a safe return to athletics. All of our coaches were available for questioning. There is technical difficulties going on. We weren't able to join into the meeting initially, but now that I'm here, just wanted to, again, provide our best case for a safe return to reopening athletics. So if you're on the second slide that reads overview, first and foremost, I just wanted to provide a general overview as to what our entire program is doing to foster a safe environment for all of our athletes. This is something that is across the board for all of our fall sports. We are following AIA guidelines. As you know, AIA is following those recommendations from SMAC, which stands for Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. And above all else, we're following, and it follows district guidelines. Everything that is in place moving forward, these athletic programs are following those guidelines as well. Something that was brought up, as I was vaguely hearing during the meeting on my phone here, was that COVID-19 numbers have been and always will be a concern, but we need to recognize that they significantly improved in Arizona, specifically in Cochise County and Douglas. Currently, there are 50 active cases in our county and 20 active cases locally, according to our coaches.gov website that I just reviewed this morning as well. If you can go to the next slide there, it should be titled Safe Learning Environment. So our governor in June provided a mandate that all schools, all public schools, provide an on-site learning and support services for those students that need a place. And our case for athletics is that it's an equivalent safe learning environment for our student athletes and for our students, as we provide them a safe and structured environment that allows them the opportunity to participate in an extracurricular activity. Currently, DUSD has students on site with about 30 to 40 students per site. DHS specifically has, as recent as today, 17 in our library, 18 in our cafeteria, and 10 in our special education classroom. So far in the 2.5 weeks of schooling, it has been handled quite effectively. There's guidelines and safety procedures in place, and knock on wood, fortunately, we haven't had to deal with any issues at this point. How is this similar? Athletics would be done in a safe manner, in small groups, and mainly outdoors, and along with staggered start times, among other things. According to our athletic trainer, Mr. Mitch Nelson, he agrees that if we are able to do a safe learning opportunity for our students in school, that this type of structured environment is safe and doable at the athletics level. I know there's a concern about contact At this point, as if we are allowed to integrate into our phase one, there is no contact whatsoever. It's a slow, gradual approach to returning. One thing that I would like our board members to consider, if they drive around to our local parks, our local gyms, that those are clearly open and available now to our youth. You would notice that there's club, travel teams, etc., practicing as normal. And what we do is we run the risk of those same students not following any kind of safety procedures or guidelines. What we can offer here at Douglas High School is something that is structured and provides that, where we have the control of what goes on in our practices. We also run the risk of students participating in club athletics and traveling outside of our city limits, participating in things like in Tucson and Phoenix, where travel is your concern, but they may be doing it anyway. So with that being said, we offer that opportunity for them to do it here in a controlled environment. If you can continue on to the next slide.
Mr. Moraine, excuse the interruption.
Yeah.
We've heard this before, and I think we should continue on with the agenda. Thank you very much, Mr.
Mr. Sabal, appreciate the comment. However, I think out of respect for everybody that Mr. Ortega represents, that we should let him finish his presentation. And what he's actually doing, he's highlighting. And then if we have any questions after that, I appreciate your wanting to get on with the agenda, but I think that in all deference to the athletic department and the people he represents, is that we let him continue. Go ahead, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ms. Brain. So, continuing just to kind of give you that general outline that during the past couple of months, and specifically the past few weeks, I've worked very closely with our fall sports coaches, and each of which have created and designed their own modifications, as well as following the modifications that were provided through the AIA and SMAC, which is our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. So into the next slides, if you continue on, and I won't delve into the details of it, but I just wanted to provide a visual for our governing board members and for the public that our teams are prepared. And I think that's the number one thing that we need to understand, is that our teams and our coaches are over-prepared, because there is a plan for everything we have in place here. So I'm on the slide right now with football modifications. As you can see, it focuses on entry, exits, grouping. And if you go on to the next page where it's continued, practice procedures, breaking it down to any specific thing imaginable there. And as we continue on into our sports, I'm on cross country. Cross country is also prepared with the staggered start times, different types of procedures for grouping. Our golf also has their modifications as well. What we hope to be approved, our new head coach for volleyball has also provided as much input as she possibly can, as she's joined us just recently. But she's also very aware of all of the AIA guidelines and expectations. And I'm moving on to our swim. So again, all of these modifications were designed by our coaches here, as well as Spirit Line, as they're part of our athletics program. Coach Vallardos has also provided her specific guidelines and procedures for her practices should that time come. One thing that I did want to highlight, and if you could go to the slide where it says Student Athlete Wellness Study, I think that it's very important to understand where our students are, not just physically, but mentally as well. I conducted a quick anonymous study with our senior athlete leadership group, and some of the things that were covered was mental health concerns. And as you see by the data, the majority of our students have been experiencing high rate of mental distress. And a lot of it is due to the outset of this pandemic. They've been on an emotional roller coaster, among others, coaches, administrators as well. And I read it in AZ Central today. Optimism was followed by pessimism, followed by uncertainty, followed by anxiety, followed by depression, followed by panic, followed by renewed hope, and then more stress and anxiety. And I think we need to understand what our students are going through at this time as well. So athletics doesn't just provide an opportunity for physical activity, it provides them a safe zone and an opportunity for them to live as normal as possible. Now, obviously, there is guidelines and things in place for them as far as safety is concerned, but we're also providing a safe environment for them for their mental well-being as well. The next slide, I'm almost complete. The next slide is the barriers to training. It's obvious that most of our athletes now are experiencing significant barriers to any kind of physical training. And part of that is because they don't have those facilities, they don't have those options or anything available to them. For us, we provide that platform for them where they can still be physically active in a safe and structured environment. And it's all facilitated by our coaches who are trained by our certified athletic trainer as well as the athletic director. This training helps with just their overall mental awareness, their alertness, and just their general motivation, as we all know that athletics is tied heavily to academic success as well. So providing this opportunity helps them significantly with academics. We need to understand that now our public gyms are starting to open where there's little to no structure. We provide at Douglas High School a very structured and safe environment for them with very structured guidelines. And then to the last part, just a little summary. Again, we reduce the risk of any kind of, we reduce these risks by following the guidelines and modifications, which we've worked on and we've had in place for several weeks now. We provide that safe learning environment for all of them. We keep them safe also for the risk of mental health issues and depression and anxiety, which the majority of our student athletes are suffering from right now due to the uncertainty of lots of things. We do have plans in place specifically for in case if there were to be an outbreak of one or even more, we have a plan for that. We need to understand collectively that uncertainty creates more anxiety amongst all those involved. If we don't allow them to participate in structured environment, in structured activities, it just doesn't make sense to me how they would be allowed to attend our local parks or gyms, or even this weekend, theaters will now be open. So we need to kind of keep those things in perspective as well. To sum it all up, I think we all have a responsibility and we owe it to our student athletes to provide resources and facilities to keep them safe and provide them the opportunity to be active and provide some sense of normalcy back into the lives of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good presentation. And then before I react, again, I'll go around and to individual board members if they want to comment regarding anything that was said subsequent to your original statements. Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate Mr. Ortega's presentation, and I understand and I believe that athletics plays a very important part for the students' well-being. To my knowledge, the parks are only open for walkers. The amenities are not open. The gyms are very limited capacity, although I'm not exactly sure of the private sector. But still, there's too many unknowns, and I don't want it on my conscience if even when we have one asymptomatic person start to be a super spreader, and then the unforeseen and the tragic happens. And I don't want that on anybody's conscience. So that's my statement. Thank you.
And then just quickly, the comment not only made by Mr. Ortega, but summed up by you regarding the parks. Those are individual decisions and personal decisions that don't have anything to do with this board approving. And I want to feel good about that, because if God forbid anything happened to those people, those are independent decisions made by them and had nothing to do with anything that was sanctioned by the school district. Dr. Gomez.
I think Mr. Ortega outlined what I've been thinking, and that is that this is a controlled environment. Mr. Lindemann says that he wouldn't like for it to be on his conscience that somebody went in there that was a spreader. But the thing of it is that spreader is not only on the athletic field, he's everywhere. And so, again, like I was telling you before, about 2 meetings ago, what are we going to expect that those student athletes are going to be at home 24/7? They're going to be out and about. So you don't know that if somebody was to test positive for the COVID-19, that the athletic was the thing to blame. Because they could have gotten it anywhere. When they go to Walmart, when you see them walking around with no face mask. And I've seen that a lot. I've seen a lot of kids walking around, riding their bikes and everything like that, and not one of them has a mask on. So at least we know that our athletics are going to be in a controlled environment. So I'm glad for Mr. Ortega's report.
Just to follow up on that, controlled environment while they're on the premises, and that's great. But when they leave, they're not in a controlled environment, so the controlled environment becomes breached, so to speak. It's like the WNBA and the NBA right now are in a bubble in Florida. They don't leave, they don't go anywhere. They can control that, but we can't control these kids. And then, let's face it, we have some kids that are athletically involved that live in Mexico. And that's another issue that we have to deal with. But we don't know what the situation is over there, and if they're coming over here and they're practicing, we don't know what kind of an environment they're in over there. If we had the bubble, which isn't realistically possible, I would be strongly in favor of it. But the breaching and the weakness in the chain of them leaving that safe environment every day and then coming back is what would concern me. And that's a decision that one case to me would be too much, and especially if we had a spread and we approved it, then it would be something that we would be held responsible for. Mr. Ramos.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that we as board members are responsible for the district's children, their education, but most of all, their safety and the safety of the staff that they will be around. And the way it's been said is that everything is coming down right now as far as the coronavirus going on, but it's still there. And I feel very, very strongly that if one of our kids has an issue that is comes down with the coronavirus, they're going to blame the district. And I don't want to go through that, and especially if one of them gets ill, goes home, and someone in their family has more serious reaction by being infected by that student. Thank you.
Mr. Sabal, do you have any comments regarding that?
No, thank you.
Mr. Brain, do I have a chance to respond?
Oh, certainly. Go ahead. Absolutely.
Thank you, appreciate it. So, I first and foremost, as you mentioned, that students that are any kind of youth or high school students that go to the park, that is individual decisions. You are correct. That's exactly correct, and that's on their own. That's their own individual decision. But ultimately, those students will be the ones that will be attending at some point that will be on our campus at some point. We're hoping as soon as October, but those students that make those individuals, and it's on them, they run that risk. We do eventually allow those students on our campus. So what we can offer, again, like Dr. Gomez reiterated, was that controlled environment. Now, what they do outside of campus, obviously we can't control, and you are correct in that point. But we can control what they do on our campus. We could practice safe and effective procedures we have that all in place. The other thing as well, we talked about it being something that we are held responsible. Ultimately, I agree with all 5 of you that we don't want any of our students or any of our athletes or coaches to get sick or put anything at risk. But one thing that's important to note is that athletics is voluntary. It's not mandatory among whatsoever, and those that do participate are signing an acknowledgement of risk, a waiver that was approved by the trust specifically for athletics. And with that waiver, they do understand all of the guidelines and the restrictions that are in place, and do acknowledge the risk, and also does not hold the district liable. So again, I just want to kind of note that athletics is voluntary. We are in no way forcing our students onto our campus or onto our fields or onto our courts. It is something that is voluntary.
How would, it would be kicking the can down the road, but the AIA is going to meet tomorrow. And if the AIA doesn't come up with a schedule and they leave it as status quo, the way it is right now with nothing scheduled, then that sends a loud message. I personally would like to wait and see what they had to say. If need be, if board members were to contact me and saying they'd like to have another board meeting regarding athletics and like to reconsider, then that's an option. But they will make a significant decision tomorrow, and it's an emergency meeting, and it's because of everything that's going on right now. So I don't know, what would your feelings be regarding no action being taken here today and waiting till tomorrow and see what the AIA does? Even if they were to do something, that still doesn't have any compromise or any authority over this board to do what they're doing, but it would give us an idea as to what direction they're moving in, because there's nothing scheduled right now. You don't even know who you're going to play. So I think that's my sentiment. And
Right.
And I don't know what you feel about that. Mr. Ortega, I'll let you respond if you want.
Sure, and just to clarify, AIA is meeting tomorrow. What they're going to do is they're going to be receiving some more recommendations from SMAC. At that point, I believe that there's going to be some kind of a significant decision. As far as your question regarding the scheduling, although it's not available on the azpreps.com that's available to the public, it is available on my end. So I do see scheduling being inputted that is adjusted based off of the staggered start time for AIA. So there is games and matches being scheduled at this time. It's just not available to the public yet until there is some kind of certainty on the direction that they're going.
I hope you understand, Mr. Ortega, regardless of what is done here today, whether there's a decision or there isn't, or whatever the decision happens to be, that every individual board member is working within their own framework and their own points of reference regarding how they feel about as Mr. Ramos said, the welfare and safety of the students. And that's incumbent on my mind as well, that to me it's a very, very serious decision. It would be a disaster if we were to open it up and you went through all of the cautions and precautions you're going to be taking up there, but these kids still go home at night, and they'll be coming back, and there was an outbreak. I think it would be unforgivable. So I'm going to leave it at that unless you want to wrap it up. I'm going to come back to the board for deliberation, and I'm just going to ask the board members. Well, first of all, before I do that, I need to say that I initially had said that in our agenda that came to the board on Friday, that there was no recommendation from the superintendent other than to discuss the recommendation for DHS athletics as presented. However, I understand that today she was in contact with Mrs. Cox, right? And I think it's appropriate for you to give what her recommendation is as well. So if you want to just read it, and it'd be verbatim what she said, correct?
Yes. Okay. So it says, Superintendent Samaniego recommends allowing DHS athletics to resume as presented by the DHS administration. Under this reentry plan Phase 1, we would allow for practices to initiate in pods with 10 or less students at a time. Coaches and students will have to follow all COVID-19 guidelines in order to participate. All students will have to submit a waiver. We know that and understand the concern is the exposure and close contact from student to student. Currently, all of our students have safe learning spaces for students while they attend school every day to do their online work. Each school has anywhere from 12 to 45 students in one learning space being supervised by support staff. This is similar to the supervision that would take place by each coach. Mr. Ortega has worked diligently with his coaching staff to provide me with a proposal in which our students would be able to begin participating in pods. We understand that during this pandemic year, athletics may not be the same, but with safe guidelines in place, I feel that our students can return to a very modified athletic program. My recommendation also includes to postpone any competition until at least after Labor Day if the health department continues to provide us with information that demonstrates there is a decline in COVID-19 cases. I ask that our governing board consider DHS proposals for athletics and give students an opportunity to begin some type of physical activity.
Okay,
Mrs.
thank you.
Summer.
Members of the board, what's your pleasure?
Mr. President, I'd like to hear what the AIA has to say on the subject for statewide information.
Dr. Gomez?
Well, that's kind of like a given, because if they say no, then it's a moot point. What are we going to do, right?
Right.
Okay, but I was just thinking in my mind, the kids that go to the schools now, how is that not the same as practicing? The kids that go to school, how are they controlled when they walk into the classroom?
The difference then that is that by law and by the governor's edict, we have to do that.
Okay,
We have to
but
take
the
that.
thing of it is, the point is that those kids are running the same risk as people that were practicing. Okay? In other words, and if we can't, if we had somebody come in to the school that was a carrier, and then we didn't get it, the same thing would happen as if we had somebody that was a carrier that went to the football practice. So, I mean, this is oranges and oranges of how we are going to control the environment for our students. That's my point.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes, I just would like to see what happens with the meeting that's going to be held tomorrow, and then wait to see them come back and maybe address this in a special board meeting or whatever.
Mr. Sabal?
Yeah, I agree. Let's see what they say tomorrow in the meeting, and we can put it on the agenda later down the road.
Okay, and of course, doing that, there's so many circumstances that prevail, but in ensuring, from my standpoint and from what I hear from the board, from every member of the board, that everybody's concerned about the health and welfare of not only the students but the staff. And so if I don't hear a motion to do anything, then we're going to move on to the next agenda item. No action taken. Item L. I'm sorry, Dr. Gomez.
Okay,
No,
I can understand that we won't make a motion, but can we, if we had to meet in a week or something like that and decide?
in all fairness to everybody involved, to all interested parties, I'm open to doing anything that's going to be in the best interest of the kids in this district. And if the AIA does something tomorrow that they say, yeah, now we got the schedule, and we find out that the COVID cases are are increasing or going down, it will give us more information in a week. That if board members want to get together again specifically to discuss this, I'll be more than willing to put it back on the agenda and call a meeting.
Yes.
Okay? All right, thank you. So we're moving on to item, and Mr. Ortega, I don't want to be redundant or belabor the point, but thank you so much for your interest and your time in that presentation. And I think you understand the feeling of the board, whether you agree with it or not. Hopefully you can be empathetic to what the situation of each individual board members is here and the responsibility we have in this. And thank you again for that presentation and all the time you took to put it together. Item K, discussion information for child nutrition, Serve Safe Manager certification. I guess that would be Mr. Soto. No?
As
Yeah,
presented.
that's presented. I
As
mean, it is
presented.
something that we do every year, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, is it?
yes,
Yes.
as presented.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item M, discussion action on the approval of emergency procurement purchases related to COVID-19. Mr. Soto.
No,
know.
that's L.
We're
Oh, I'm
at,
sorry.
Skip L.
I skipped L. I'm sorry. Discussion information for DUSD number 27, distant learning plan approved by ADE. Ms. Cox,
As presented.
do you want to give us a little explanation of what it is?
Yes, so the state in its executive order required the districts to provide a distance learning plan. And there were different components to this distance learning plan that we had to submit to the State Department. And so we submitted it and they've approved our plan.
Okay, I entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman.
Mr. President, it's only for information. It doesn't have to have a board approval.
Oh, it was information on the
Yes.
plan that was approved. All right, item M, discussion action on the approval of emergency procurement. That's yours, Mr. Soto.
Yes, this is something that we're gonna be bringing to the board every month. Basically what this is giving some kind of liberty to the school districts to don't go the full procurement process to select vendors because of the COVID, especially we're purchasing PPE equipment and all of that stuff. So every month we're going to be bringing you a list of the vendors we selected right away because as you know, all of those things are getting out of stock, and so
Everyone else has left the call.
we need to act pretty quick. So what we have for the month of August is the list you have right there. This the one coming this following month is going to be a lot bigger, but this is a requirement the ADE asked us to do. I mean that letter. What the process we did and why we selected them basically is because of the availability of the product, not so much for the price, but it's in regards of COVID purchases.
So that those purchases are similar under USFR to the sole source, because you have to go through the same paperwork.
Correct.
Entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman. Second
Second?
by Dr. Gomez. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item N, discussion action on the approval of qualified select bidders for new 912 space at Douglas High School. Mr. Soto.
And this is in regards of the additional construction to be done at the high school. Basically what this is a form that is going to help us out selecting contractors. The regular way to do it is just open it up and have all of the contractors that want to apply that are interested in the project. So by approving this, the board is allowing us to only select from 3 to 5 contractors that we need to deal and get quotes and proposals from them. So this is a recommendation from the professional group, which is the one helping us with all of the procurement process.
Let me ask you a question before we get it on the floor. On the backup material, where you have determination to use qualified select bidders, that comes directly out of R7-2-1004, correct? that language comes directly out of, in accordance with that, right? With that
Correct.
Administrative code.
Administrative code.
If you look down to number 3, it says the firms will have a greater voice in the products that could be substituted to value engineer and/or speed delivery of products and equipment to the construction site. For the purposes of, I know what that means, but that's important for the board to know exactly what that means.
What that point means?
Right.
Well, basically, so whoever we selected to help us out with the construction, that they're gonna have that liberty of selecting, of course, within the project manager and the architect, they're gonna have selections of products that are gonna be used for the construction. What I'm saying about the project manager and the architect being involved is that they need to make sure that these products are of quality, that they're just not gonna go with the cheapest thing they can find to do the construction.
Well, to be more specific, that comment, they will have a greater voice vis-à-vis the district. Right?
Right.
In
right.
other words, whether we like it or not, if they say this is a better product, this is what we're gonna put in there, we have to take it, right?
Yes, yeah, that wording says that,
Okay,
yeah.
that's the point I wanted to make, in case something comes up, like the board or the administration's out looking at a project, and they say, well, we selected this tile because it was a better price, and it was this, just so that everybody understands. And if we say, oh, we don't like it, or whatever, they'll say, well, we'll look at it, but that's what that means, that they'll have a greater voice in
Right.
selection of products. And I just want to make sure you clarified that. Entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman.
Second.
Second by Dr. Gomez.
Mr. President,
Discussion?
I do have a quick question
Go
on that.
ahead.
On that point. Are we going to be confident that they're going to select the quality that we expect?
Well, you have to remember that when we hired them, we had certain specifications that we said, we asked them questions and so on. But generally, when you give them that much authority, and that's the reason I wanted the board to know this, when you give them that much authority, once we approve their contract, that's exactly, and that's within the law. That they're the ones that could tell us, nope, that's within our budget, that's within your budget, and this is the way we're gonna go. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item O, discussion action on the approval of fiscal year 2021 capital plan submittal to the State of Arizona Facilities Board. Mr. Soto.
I'm just gonna request to table this item at this point. We've been having some issues, well, the School Facilities Board is having some issues with their website, so we haven't been able to upload this, the plan. So we were in contact with our rep, and they're working on it. So I just wanted to table this for the next, whenever we have another board meeting,
Okay, so you don't want any action on that
No.
tonight at all?
just table it.
All right, item P, discussion action on approval to appoint Mr. Lindeman to represent Douglas Unified School District as the district delegate to the Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly on October the 17th. Well, congratulations, you've already been there.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's something that I was always opposed to in other places, that everything's always approved after the fact. It's like these vouchers we're signing. Everything's already been
paid.
purchased. It's already been purchased. The payroll's already gone. All right, entertain a motion to do that, to appoint Mr. Lindeman.
I move to appoint Mr. Lindeman as a representative of DUSD 27.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabal. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Discussion action, Q. Discussion action on approval of the Arizona School Boards Association draft 2021 political agenda and direct the district's delegate to the ASBA Delegate Assembly to represent the board's determined position. Do you want to get a motion on the floor first?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second by Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Okay, discussion, Mr. Lindeman.
Yeah, I've read through this, and I believe that this is generally, the way that we should do it, the way the district should go, it's actually nothing new that they come up. But this is the political agenda that will go up to the legislature.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item R, discussion action pursuant to policy BGF to temporarily suspend policy BGB, requiring two readings of the proposed policies prior to approval of the adoption in order to approve the following policy advisories immediately upon the first reading. And they are policy advisory number 677 and policy advisory 678. I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I move to approve.
By Mr. Lindemann,
Second.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Do you have any comments regarding that?
Yeah.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item is discussion action on the approval of COVID-19 liability coverage endorsement under the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust Incorporated for $45,000. Members of the board, you'll remember we discussed this.
Yes.
And we all agreed that we should have it. There's nothing more to say other than we should have it.
Right.
Especially when the kids, if there's any incidents that come up. I'll entertain a motion to
I
approve.
move to approve.
By Mr. Lindemann,
Second.
second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal? Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item 4, request for future agenda items, members of the board?
Well, just the thing on the athletics.
Right, definitely. And as soon as we hear something, board members, if you want a meeting, just let me know, and I'll get a hold of Alma, and we'll get it done.
Okay.
Announcements, Ms. Cox?
Yes, so Labor Day is coming up, so there will be no school and all offices closed on September 7th. We have virtual parent-teacher conferences scheduled for September 23rd, and they will be from 1 to 7. And the next regular board meeting is October 6th at 5 p.m.
Item 6, executive session. The governing board may vote to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, subsection A, number 1, for the following personnel matter. A, consideration of a 2020-2021 certified teacher to be released from her contract, and B, consideration of a 2020-2021 certified teacher to be released from her contract. I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I move to go into an executive session.
By Mr. Lindemann.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabal. We're in executive session.
Can we have a
back in open session. And item 7A, members of the board, discussion action on the request of the release of the fiscal year 2020-21 contract submitted by Ms. Lucille Villahermosa, certified teacher, ESS-Stevenson. I'll entertain a motion by the board that the administration notify the State Board of Education that this individual signed a contract with another district, simultaneously holding a contract with a district, that this board considers it to be an unprofessional, unethical act, and that we notify the State Board for them to take the action of revocation of her certificate, and that we also notify her present employer that she did the same, citing all of the district policies and statutes that are inherent to this type of action.
I move to approve the recommendation as stated.
I
Second?
agree.
Okay, Mr. Sabal, second. Any discussion? Did you get that, all of that on my, you'll get it on the recording. So basically, what we're saying is that you're going to notify the State Board of Education. She committed an unprofessional act that she cited, and of course, we don't even get into the non-rehirable because she made that moot when she became an employee someplace else and had two contracts at the same time. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, item B, discussion action on the request of the release of the fiscal year 2020-21 contract submitted by Ms. Angelica Aguilar, certified teacher, Paul Huber Middle School.
I move that we accept Ms. Aguilar's to be released from her contract with no liquidated damages and rehirable.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lindeman. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes.
Mr. Brain, before we adjourn, I'd like to ask a question, because you're the one that would know. On the liquidated damages, was that a figure that was set up some years back, or can that be changed?
First of all, historically, there wasn't liquidated damages at one time. And then when they originally adopted the policy, of course, it was done with the legal advice of the attorney. This hasn't changed since I've been affiliated with the district again. So my understanding is that it's been the same for at least the last 10 years.
Okay. Could that be changed?
Yes, certainly. This board can change that if we want to. Would you like to address it?
I would like to be put on the agenda.
Okay, before we do that, though, we instruct the administration to come back with a recommendation, all right? And Dr. Gomez, what are you looking at? An increase of the
I would say an
phases?
increase, because I think, like, we've been getting a lot of these resignations, and I don't think $1,500 is not incentive enough not to seek, release of contract.
And then, of course, the question comes in, the ability to collect.
Yeah.
Because if we do this and we're doing it for a valid purpose, which it would be, then we have to make sure that before we release in the future, that they pay first. We say in the motion that we release them from contract contingent on their paying the liquidated damages, which means they gotta pay first, and then when they pay, then it's valid, okay? Very
That
good.
could be a part of the discussion.
Okay, so we'll come back with some recommendations on that at the next board meeting. And according to policy, the one with liquidated damages and early, and all those things. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn
I move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman,
Second.
second by Mr. Sabal. All in favor, signify